Welcome to the Liberation Lab podcast, insights and interviews for the disruptive educator. I'm honored to have my guests. So why don't you tell people who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Hey y'all, my name is Hannah Jackson Matthews. Uh, I am a content creator, writer, speaker, educator who teaches primarily post adoption education, specifically focusing on transracial adoption. So adoption that happens when a child is adopted by a person or family whose race is different than their own. And the reason why I do that is because that's my story. I was adopted transracially, grew up with two white parents and one white sibling and one other adopted sibling who's Korean. And so it's a long story, but I'll try to make it short for the introduction. And that, like,
Please
I
take it back.
I definitely, it took me a long time to feel comfortable in my biracial Black womanhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw other transracial adoptees throughout my just life and could see that they were likely struggling with some identity things as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember how, first of all, fortunate I've been to have so many amazing, generous Black folks in my life be patient with me and teach me things that I needed to learn. And that's not everyone's story. So I think that I wanted to pay it forward. The gifts that I've been given to be the woman I am now, I wanted to be able to share that with others. So I didn't really know how to do that at first, and I started on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, I've been able to uh, have my own products and services for families and agencies, have even worked with schools. So yeah, that's me and what I do and why I do it.
I don't know if you know this. You probably do, but I've been rocking with you for a while. Um, you know, when when I first came across your page and I first came across the work that you do, my first thought was like, oh my God, like there's a space for this topic. There's a space for, because I never really shared about having, you know, a story of adoption in my past, right? Like
Mhm.
I never really talked about it because you always feel like you're not necessarily going to be understood, the layers of it all, right?
100%.
So my biological mother, um, when she gave birth to me, she left me on a doorstep in Houston, Texas.
Mm.
It is the way that I know that I was born on February 13th.
Mm.
Um, I bounced around the foster care system. My name was actually like Warren back then. They kind of,
Okay.
just gave you a name, and until my mom got me, and I was a little bit over a year old. But I grow up and I have no idea, right? Like I don't know that this
Mm.
is my history at all until I get to my 12th birthday and my
Wow.
family tells me. Now, 12 is like seventh grade.
Yeah.
It's it's middle school.
You already have enough identity things going on, man. Like, let me just throw this huge thing in the mix. Happy
Yes.
birthday.
Happy birthday. Yes. So I'm reeling from all of that. Like I'm trying to figure out, is this like, did I live a lie? Like what's going
Mm.
on? Who am I? Why didn't she want me? Right? You think back
Yeah.
to like Will Smith, Fresh
Mm-hmm.
Prince, that episode, right?
Yeah.
The hell with him, right? Like I felt that in
Yeah.
multiple layers, not only from mom, biological mom and father, because I don't know who they are, but even like my adopted father, like I don't know him. So now we're
Mm.
talking about multiple layers of rejection. You follow me?
Yeah. Yeah.
I say all of that to say going through school and not having a place to like share, unpack, learn, heal. I just had to kind of go with this wound that I covered that was festering. And so I don't know if that's like normal. I don't know what other people's experience is like, but like if you could kind of share, if you feel comfortable, what that was like for you going through school, particularly with your story of adoption. Like, is how
Mm,
much of that do you know? Do you vibe with? Like, what's different? Just
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well, first, I just want to say thank you for sharing that. Although we joked around, it's like some heavy stuff, so I
yeah,
appreciate you sharing it. And you're definitely not alone in a lot of pieces of your story. Yeah, I know that my adoptive brother, who was born in Korea, has a similar story of like kind of being a foundling and then ending up in child welfare and then being adopted later in life. It's a little bit different internationally, but you're not alone in that story. It's a common narrative. It's not
mm,
mine. Um, and then, I mean, what you said about having kind of no kind of an audience of one when it comes to
yeah,
like
yeah,
what you're trying to process, and also the fear of what do I if I do say this, what's going to be the perception? Are
yeah,
people going to understand? Are they going to be empathetic? you know, um, and so I think it's a mixture of that resonates with me most significantly. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. As far as school's concerned, I grew up in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, which is in Lancaster County. It's southwestern Pennsylvania, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit east of Harrisburg, and it's a small town. I grew up there my whole life. I was born in Kansas City, and by
Okay.
my birth mother, and then she chose my adoptive family,
Okay.
and I was placed with them. I was like 3 weeks or something like that. So it
Hmm.
was like a plan that was before I was born. When I'm born, I'm gonna go here.
Yeah.
So my adoptive family was really all I'd ever known. Um, and then, okay, so school. Sorry, I grew up in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, and it is astronomically white. It is so. I was one of. I could probably name all of the people of color that I went to school with. Um, and it's small, and people stay there, and they're from there, and their
Hmm.
families from there, and their families from there, and somebody has somebody who their grandfather was a settler there, and it's like people just don't leave. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
needless to say, when you're, yeah, I just felt I felt like an alien
Mm,
a lot growing up. I felt different, and sometimes like everyone knew an inside joke that I didn't know.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that was basically my early years. I
Mm,
remember kind of enjoying being adopted as a young person,
okay.
in that like it was a way to break like to be unique and to get
Mm,
attention. Like as a kid, you're like, oh, this is a way that I can like
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, maybe garner some positive attention. If it's like, oh, 3 interesting facts about me, or I like to swim, and I like dogs, and I'm adopted. So that's like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so I remember doing that, and then as I got older, I started to kind of like maybe not feel so. Maybe I had gotten enough feedback or had enough like situations that had made me feel like, oh, maybe it's not always positively received, or maybe it's not always bringing the attention that I want.
Yeah.
Um, and so as I got older, I started to kind of be more embarrassed about being adopted,
Mm,
um, or just feeling like I didn't want to. It was a part of myself that I didn't want to share, or didn't feel comfortable to share. And yeah, I don't feel like I'm rambling,
no, you're good. You're good.
but yeah, I feel like it's a lot of things. I think the racial isolation piece is one part,
Mm-hmm.
um, because it's hard being a student of color in predominantly white space.
100%.
It's hard when your educators know less than you do about certain things. It's hard when you're feeling tokenized by educators. We're talking about Black history, and
Mm-hmm.
oh, Hannah, what do you think about this? Um, or I remember we read To Kill a Mockingbird,
God help me.
which has like, the N
Yes,
word in it a bunch of times,
a
and
whole bunch of
you
times.
know, and I remember like I played the role of someone, so one of the characters of color. Maybe it was I can't remember the man who ends up. We always laud Atticus Finch for like
Atticus
being this
Finch. That's
amazing
all you know.
lawyer,
Yeah,
and then oh boy, which I can't remember his name, which is a shame.
I
But he
can't
ends
either.
up
That's how
they
crazy
end
it
up
is.
he ends up dying,
Yeah,
and we just like, oh yeah, like,
but Atticus though.
but Atticus, he
Yeah.
did the right thing though, you know. It's
Yes.
wild. Anyway, but I
Yeah.
remember I think I played like maybe that character's wife or something like that. But anyway, it was very like you have
Yeah.
your boxes, and you're just definitely dealing with a lot of stereotypes. And I had a learning disability, I have ADHD, and so there was layers to that as well.
I
Yeah.
would I would think, just hearing that there are many ways, many opportunities to be misunderstood with what you shared, right? Like, so we're talking about one, you know, adoption, not just
Mm-hmm.
adoption, but transracial adoption, right? Not just transracial adoption, but now you're in school and, you know, diagnosed ADHD, right? So then there's that, and again, we're still learning more about, what it means to serve and support our students with ADHD. Like, we're still learning to the point where putting people in, you know, special ed programming in our schools, depending on where you are, is almost like you 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 you're just casting them off almost in some of our schools. So
Mm-hmm.
there's still so much of a learning curve there. Then on top of, you know, biracial black womanhood
Mm-hmm.
in school, that's a there's a lot of opportunity to be like not seen
Yeah.
or to be misunderstood. When you talk about kind of being an alien in that experience, how did you navigate being a transracial adoptee and then going to a school where you just felt like, yo, it's just me out here in these streets. Like, I'm not necessarily seen.
How did I handle? That's a great question. I don't know if there's a really good answer for it. I think
Okay.
I just got. I was actually talking to my husband about this the other day, and I was reflecting on. I definitely kept a lot of things to myself. I've had people
Hmm.
reach out to me after, now that I have um, some more following on Instagram. Like people who have grown up with, have some of them have come across my content, and
Hmm.
they'll be like, "Oh, Hannah, I had no idea like you felt that way, and I'm sorry that I never thought to think that it would be different for you at all." Which is kind of them to say, but first, in a lot of ways, I didn't even have the language to to express what I was feeling. I didn't have enough experience around other Black folks or in Black culture. And there's just a lot of things like I just needed to experience to even be able to like express that part of myself.
Yeah.
And then if I had, even with the little language that I did have, I feel like it was often you said perfectly. There's lots of opportunity to be misunderstood. I
Yeah.
was often misunderstood,
Yeah.
and so I just tried my best to. I was saying that I was kind of a weirdo in high school. Like I was an art kid, and
Yeah.
um, not a weirdo, but just like I wasn't competing for anyone's, approval. I was just okay
Approval.
with being
Yeah.
kind of strange. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of that had to do with that was the way that I could be the most myself without sharing, like without being able to share what I was dealing with as far as my racial identity was concerned. So I was like, I can be creative and artistic and out there and goofy, and it's a way of kind of being weird and being an outcast, and I can have other people who know what that's like,
Hmm.
but they might not understand it from a racial aspect. And so I think that that was kind of my way of like finding belonging
Yeah.
given the context that I was in.
One of my favorite movies is Gladiator. Have you seen Gladiator? Okay.
I
Oh,
haven't. I
you're not
know that's
entertained.
like sacrilege when I haven't seen it. Yes.
You have not seen it.
No.
Okay, all right. Listen, there's grace and forgiveness. And so um there the main character, um Maximus, he is about to prepare for this last battle, right? And in this battle, he's facing this king who kind of has usurped the throne from his father, killed his father, the whole nine. Like, this is just a madman. He has been thrown into this lower class life where he has to fight to live, literally. And in this last battle, before he goes out, the the king knows he can't match Maximus. So he takes this little knife and puts a little wound in his side before he goes out. And then he tells his guards, make sure you cover the wound. So nobody else can see that I've done something to kind of even the playing field.
Mm.
And so now he comes out and he's fighting, but you don't know he's wounded because the armor is covering it.
Mm.
And in a similar way, I think, if I'm speaking for myself, I absolutely did that. I'm wounded from my experiences. I'm wounded from, you know, I've always struggled with acceptance, belonging, always.
Mm-hmm.
It's been something where if I'm not in a healthy place, I'll go into people pleasing because because I felt like it was something that I was starved from growing up, right? And so I grew up in a household that was like, you better do right in order to get anything from, right? So now I had to get the great good grades. I had to be, you know, not just solid at basketball, I had to be good. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I couldn't just be mediocre. There was
Yeah,
no
yeah,
room
yeah.
for that. You know what I mean? Um, and it does, like, there are good products that, like, I really strive to make sure what I do is done with excellence. But sometimes if I'm not careful, it's because I need you to like me.
Yeah.
I need you to see me as something that is someone that is worth your attention and desire and belonging. And now navigating the school, when I think about my educational experience, I think about um, teachers that affirm me, teachers that saw something in me. I remember them to this day because it meant something that I don't even think that they even knew. And so I hear your experience. I hear, listen, I tried to navigate this by getting my Maximus on. Like, yeah, I was wounded, but the armor was up. I was going to be my artsy, kind of goofy self, and I wasn't going to buy into these rules of acceptance. Um, did you have educators that saw, like, just your genius and your gift, like the people that saw you for who you were, or like, what was that like for you with in terms of the educators in the building?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I definitely had some educators that were my favorites,
Hmm.
but I was a very mediocre student. Um, was not very invested in grades.
Yeah.
My, I think also the context of like my family, my brothers, my two older brothers, were very high achieving in school. In fact, they were on like the gifted and talented stuff.
Yeah.
And there's me diagnosed with ADHD, just like disorganized, and there was be it inadvertently or directly, I definitely felt kind of a sense of comparison between
Hmm.
them and me,
Yep.
and I felt like my parents, I think they had low expectations for me, but lower expectations as far as school was involved from me than from my brothers. And so I kind of went through school feeling like I didn't have that much to give or offer. Not that I had nothing to offer, but I was just like, this is what I got. It's good. It's all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's average. So yeah, I graduated high school with like a 2.9 GPA or something like that. It was, it's middle of my class, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I had some teachers though. Like I think that's why I was an art kid. I loved art, and I definitely was affirmed there, and felt good at art. Felt like my teachers saw that.
Yeah.
similar with writing, which is why I studied English in undergrad. Um, and I also liked expressing myself.
Yeah.
I guess when I think about one educator, actually, now I think about it, when I think of my second grade teacher, Mrs. Myers, she had a writing club,
Hmm.
and I loved that club. I used to want to stay and write afterwards, and I'm pretty sure that that was when, like, in my head, I was like, I'm gonna write. I'm gonna be a writer. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, she was. Yeah, I don't know exactly what was said or done necessarily, but I definitely felt capable
Yeah.
and like I had something worth people reading and listening to. So
I have a lot of educators that listen in, um, and I'm imagining that in our educational spaces, there are many students, whether it be known or unknown, who have similar stories to you and I. As someone who does such amazing work in helping people to be seen, understood, valued, and the learning that needs to take place, what advice would you give an educator to create a space where people with our stories, you know, albeit different, but how can they create a sense of belonging and understanding for students who come from, you know, stories of
yeah,
adoption and things like that?
I think I think first of all, understand that family separation is a common experience, not
Yeah.
always by means of adoption, but
Yeah.
if a parent's incarcerated or even like immigration stuff.
Yeah.
There are lots of reasons why family separation is a common experience. I don't think that as educators, um, in my experience as a student, and then also as my experience as an educator, I don't know if you know that about me, but I taught ninth grade English. Um, and
I think I did know that actually.
yeah,
I was
and
scrolling
so
and I think I saw something. Go ahead.
I taught and ninth grade English for 3 years in Philadelphia. Um, that was really anyway. We can get into that later, but basically, I feel like that's something that, um, unfortunately, I think because of a lot of the ways that all of the criteria it takes to be an educator. I think that there can be a lot of privilege there. And I think with that privilege, people don't realize how commonplace it is for there to be um, family separation and loss and grief around not knowing parts of yourself or parts of your family. And so I think keeping that in mind, just being
Hmm.
mindful. Please stop making family tree assignments. That's the worst thing. Like, don't
Yeah,
do that.
man.
Like, not
Yeah.
everybody knows their family tree. Don't ask for baby pictures. Not everybody has baby pictures. Not everybody
Yeah.
knows their birthday. Like, I know that
Yeah.
it's I think a lot of things we think are just like everyone knows this, everyone has this. It's like I think that if educators approach getting to know their students from a place of curiosity, I think that that would be a very powerful thing. I think that a lot of times, for a number of reasons, I think we make a lot of assumptions about our students and just about each other.
Yeah.
Um, and in those assumptions, we overlook and
Yeah.
misunderstand one another. So yeah, be curious. Ask your kid. If you don't know, ask. You know.
And even with that curiosity is a level of humility that I think
Mm-hmm.
educators need to kind of reclaim. I think that we've allowed for a level of hubris. We
Mm-hmm.
know it. We've been trained in it, so we think we got it instead of a continual learning process that we ask our students to do, but we don't necessarily walk in ourselves, you know?
I agree. Yeah, I think there's a feeling that you need to know everything as an educator.
Absolutely.
Um,
Perfectionism.
yeah, and so it's like, and I'm sure a lot of us were good students and enjoyed school, and that's why we became teachers, and so uh,
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, I think that humility piece is huge of being able to admit wrong, and be open to learning and growing. And um, yeah, I think that that's huge and would benefit education in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
General.
So I want to transition a little bit here. I want to ask you about the work that you're doing now. Let's say folks haven't been able or don't know, right? Like to say the audience doesn't know, the work that you're doing, or even why that you're doing, right? They hear transracial adoptee and they're like, or even that work, and they're like, what? Like,
Yeah,
what is that? Why do you do that? And why is there a need for that? You know, how do you answer that question, albeit formed in ignorance? um, how do you answer that question? And you know, what's this journey been like for you?
yeah. Well, okay. So context again. Grew up racially isolated. Went off to college. Was finally exposed to Black community. I really didn't have very many Black friends growing up. And
Hmm.
then when I went off to college, nobody knew me as Hannah, the girl with two white parents. They knew me as, this is the girl on the campus. So
Yeah,
my first girlfriends, the first girls that came up to me were other Black girls because they just saw another Black girl and figured, oh yeah, we'll be friends. Well,
yeah,
we got similar life experiences anyway, um, but yeah, so it was like a culture shock for me, um, in a good way because it was something that I had really deeply desired
yeah,
my throughout my life, um, and so that was really transformational for me. That, and I was became really involved in a predominantly Black church that was part of my um, college campus, and so very quickly my life went from like very predominantly white to predominantly Black. I got
mm,
married to my husband, who was also a Black man. We had kids. We moved to Philadelphia. I taught in North Philadelphia. I taught at schools probably 90% Black. So like I had done all of these things because I so desperately wanted community and wanted a place where I felt understood and I felt seen and I felt important. And I had a bunch of formative experiences, small bits and pieces with. I've always loved being Black and loved Black folk, and
yeah,
so because I had so many formative experiences with just people seeing me. I
yeah,
would be like just out with my family, and there's some, the Black ladies just like, they're my baby. So
yeah,
I think I had done all of this work to create this life that I had fantasized about as a child, to
mm,
have a place where I felt like I belonged and I felt safe and I felt like people saw me and I felt like I had a family
yeah,
and I felt like I belonged. And then I went, my adoptive parents, offered for me and my husband B and our kids to move in with them so we could save to buy our first home. And so we were like, we're not passing that up.
yeah,
We're going to do that. So, boom, I'm back in my hometown that I worked very hard to never be around again.
yeah,
And being there, I saw a lot of families that looked like mine growing up, a lot of transracial families. And I kind of forgot about everybody else. Like, I kind of
mm,
forgot that, like, I'm not just the only person who's feeling this way or
this way,
experiencing,
yeah, yeah,
experiencing these experiences. And I saw the young people who primarily other Black children who were adopted by white families, and just was able to see them now as a mother,
yeah,
and then as a fellow transracial adoptee, and just see the like, oh baby, like you need some help. I can just tell you just need some
yeah,
love. And me and my husband were joking, like we're just gonna rent a van and just take everybody to the barbershop, and just everybody's gonna be good. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and so it was out of that, like just I just want to be able to help get you to where I am, and for you not to have to do it by yourself and do it. I was fumbling a lot in the beginning, saying stuff that was not though not necessarily wrong, but
Yeah.
definitely embarrassing myself. Definitely embarrassing myself. Um, and I wanted that journey for other transracial adoptees to be less lonely and less just painful. And I didn't have anyone like me. I had lots of people who took me under their wing and like made me their, play niece and play cousin and all the stuff. But I didn't have anyone who had known what it was like to be a transracial adoptee. And so
Yeah.
why I do the work that I do is because, like you said, there's so many opportunities for misunderstanding. As a transracial adoptee, it's so easy to somehow simultaneously be always seen and never seen.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, gift the level of understanding that I had found in community and within myself to other transracial adoptees. So that's the why. And then the how is I do a bunch of mentoring. I work with agencies. I do a lot of kind of like professional development type style trainings with agencies about and with families and caregivers, just on how do we have pretty much same as like culturally relevant pedagogy.
Yep.
Just take that John right into adoption because it's the same, we can apply a lot of the same principles. And then I'm just adding my particular lens of transracial adoption, which is it's a small niche, but it's, we out here. So
Yeah, man. I'm inspired by the fact that you like you said, like, yeah, I didn't get it all right, but I knew there was a need and I was willing to fall forward, right? Like I was willing to just go for it. And what that's created in the work that you do, the visibility that you brought to, it's brought to light for so many people who may have just been ignorant to it. I want to ask you as we wrap up here, how folks can get in contact with you, and how they can tap into the work that you're doing. I also just want to say, man, like, if it's any encouragement, I've learned so much from you.
Thank you.
Followed your work for a while, and it's helped me become a better human and a better educator. And I know sometimes in this work, whatever we're doing, it's not easy to come upon people who are going to be like, nah, I have learned, I have benefited, and because the work is hard. So I just want you to know that, and I just appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Where you can find me, primarily people find me on Instagram. My Instagram name is my name, Hannah Jackson Matthews.
Yep.
You can also find me at my website, hannahjmatthews.com. It's where I have my products and services. That's really, I feel like there's a link tree in my Instagram though, directly to all the other places I'm forgetting right now. But yes, that's where you'll find me.
100%. 100%. And I hope our educators really hear that if we're going to be intentional about this, then we got to create spaces of belonging for all our students, for wounds that we may not see. You brought that to light for us, and I hope we can push forward doing that. So thank you.
Of course, thank you for having me.